Hi, this is Arthur, and this is a summary of the story of the world quest In the Wake of Narcissus, released in Genshin Impact version 4.2. This quest seemingly concludes the world quests and of the Narcissus Cruz, Ancient Colors, and Unfinished Comedy, which I've already summarized in past story recaps. The traveler heads back to the Narcissus Cruz Ordo to see how they're doing. Once there, they decide to go over all their information in hopes of figuring something out about Mary Ann from Anaposis. They go over the following. It's unclear how Oceanids reproduce, but it is likely Mary Ann from Anaposis created Ann from her dreams. The traveler encountered Oceanids before who were powerful enough to create other Oceanids, even those that mimicked real humans. It is likely the being behind Anaposis is a similarly powerful Oceanid. They suspect Lyris is the one behind Anaposis. Hundreds of years ago, Lyris was the director of an orphanage called the Narcissus Cruz Institute. That orphanage was later destroyed by the Calamity. Seymour has records of him and his original master Mary Ann Guillotine seeing Lyris in the location where Anaposis currently is. Lyris was there sadly swimming in circles. Lyris was, at the time, an Oceanid of low intelligence. For instance, orphanage affairs were mostly managed by a human vice director. Lyris later joined the Narcissus Cruz Ordo and was given the title the Red Empress. In the Ordo, Lyris' job was to dissolve its members' egos. Of note is that Alan and Mary Ann Guillotine were orphans at the Narcissus Cruz Institute before the Marechose hunter Emmanuel Guillotine took them in. Considering Mary Ann Guillotine was a normal human who lived hundreds of years ago, it's unlikely the Mary Ann of Anaposis is the same person. Furthermore, Seymour's records show after a clash with an Elenos between the Marechose hunters and the Narcissus Cruz Ordo, Mary Ann Guillotine went missing and is likely dead. In order to help reach a conclusion, they head to Anaposis, but Mary Ann refuses to meet with them. They head back to the Ordo, and after some more thinking, the traveler deduces Lyris at some point likely dissolved Mary Ann Guillotine's personality into herself. This merged their wills together into a new being, who is the Mary Ann of Anaposis, who isolates herself in a world of dreams and fairy tales. It was the dreams of this new Mary Ann that gave birth to Anne. Caterpillar then speaks of the apocalypse the big clock in the room was supposed to be counting down to. Side note, it seems the apocalypse the big clock is counting down to is the same apocalypse prophesied in the Archon quest Masquerade of the Guilty. It seems the primary purpose of the Narcissus Cruz Ordo was to save humanity from that prophesied disaster. Caterpillar then suggests they find the Holy Blade of Narcissus Cruz. This Holy Blade was a ceremonial sword used to remove one's ego and will. With it, they may be able to separate Lyris' will from Mary Ann Guillotine's. They can also use it to stop Narcissus Cruz's plan. Side note, the leader of the Narcissus Cruz Ordo is called Narcissus Cruz and has done a lot of evil things to prevent the apocalypse. Narcissus Cruz also seems to be alive despite being hundreds of years old. They then go around trying to gather objects necessary to create the Holy Blade, but learn that Jacob is also trying to gather them. Side note, Jacob first appeared in the Ancient Colors world quest. It seems Jacob is trying to reforge the Holy Blade and still serves the Ordo. Unfortunately, Jacob seems to have beat them to most of the objects and obtained the necessary items at 3 of the 4 locations. At the 4th, however, they seem to have beaten Jacob there. As they take the object, they trigger a trap set up by Jacob that separates them and sends the traveler to the top of the Tower of Gestalt. They head inside and see Jacob. Jacob asks for the object they acquired. Jacob wants to forge the Holy Blade and give it to Narcissus Cruz. Doing so will allow Narcissus Cruz to absorb the will of everyone on the planet into himself, saving the souls of all humanity from the coming apocalypse. Jacob says Narcissus Cruz gave himself a body that can survive the foretold disaster. The traveler refuses to hand it over and fights Jacob. During the fight, Caterpillar and Seymour join in. They win the fight, and Jacob hands over the other 3 objects he took previously. They also show Jacob a photo they found. Jacob identifies the subject of the photo as Director Lyris, Alan Guillotine, Mary Ann Guillotine, Renee de Petrichor, and himself, Jacob Ingold. Side note, Jacob does not identify the adult woman in the middle, but it is likely Basil Elton, the vice director of the orphanage. With everything they need, they forge the Holy Blade. After a bit more dialogue, Jacob confirms Narcissus Cruz is in fact Renee de Petrichor and is in the bottom of the tower. The clock in the ceiling then collapses on Jacob, seemingly killing him. They descend down the tower until they are confronted with an army of Gardamex. Seymour and Caterpillar hold them off while the traveler continues to descend with Anne and Paimon. They head down further until they reach the Primordial Sea and Narcissus Cruz. Narcissus Cruz asks for the blade, but the traveler refuses. They fight and the traveler wins, reducing Narcissus Cruz's body down to a very small oceanid. They chat a bit and Narcissus Cruz realizes the traveler has somehow changed his prophetic calculations and the world will be okay. Side note, depending on whether you finish Fontaine's Archon quest, the dialogue has some slight differences, but the apocalypse will be averted either way. Narcissus Cruz is dejected as he dreamed of being a hero and saving everyone. Anne then talks to Narcissus Cruz and asks him to come with her. Narcissus Cruz agrees. Anne then reseals the Primordial Sea and they leave. They meet up with Caterpillar and Seymour and decide Anne, the traveler, and Narcissus Cruz will go meet Marianne at Anaposis first. Caterpillar and Seymour will meet up afterwards. They head to Anaposis and using the Holy Blade and some new abilities Narcissus Cruz taught Anne, they break through and meet Marianne again. After a chat, Anne and Narcissus Cruz convince Marianne to stop hiding within fairy tales and rejoin the world. Marianne and Anne then decide to travel the world and invite Narcissus Cruz, but he declines. Seymour and Caterpillar then show up and Caterpillar, Anne, and Narcissus Cruz have a chat. During the chat, Narcissus Cruz says his goodbyes and dies. The other characters do not know and are told he is resting. Marianne then invites Seymour to come on the trip and Seymour wants to but also wants to be with Mimir. Marianne suggests inviting Mimir. They then say their goodbyes and head over to Merusi Village where Seymour invites Mimir to the trip. Mimir agrees and starts packing. Caterpillar and the Traveler then say their goodbyes to Seymour and Mimir and leave Merusi Village. Once outside, Caterpillar says he will go his own way and they say goodbye. And that is the end of this quest in this video. If you've liked what you've seen here, please like, comment, and subscribe.